So this YouTuber, Blonde Politics, did this like awesome video essay in the week after the election about Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all of these dark mega, basically tech billionaires, and their obsession with Curtis Yarvin and what their vision is. And I want to play an excerpt of it, maybe 5 minutes, but people should really go over to her page to check out this full video essay. I was reading the comments and people were like, they thought you were a conspiracy theorist right after the election, and now this is exactly what's happening. She goes step by step into, you know, J.D. Vance's role and his connection with these folks. But I just thought this was so well done because this is exactly, you can see, the Yarvin and his ideology currently being implemented within the first few weeks of the Trump administration.
Are being funneled into these projects as we speak. This is the website for Praxis, a network state funded by Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Balaji, and Sam Altman, through their shared capital fund, Pronomus, which is dedicated to funding the creation of network cities. The website for Praxis says, as local communities dissolve and nation-states stumble, network states will ascend. The next global superpower will be a network state. The next America will be on-chain. The stated goal of Praxis is to build a corporate government with a global footprint. It will have territories all over the world. Crypto will be its currency. The modern global system, once the greatest power in the history of man, has become a brittle, jerry-rigged contraption incapable of carrying out the most basic functions. As these governing institutions continue to degrade, people will come to realize that no one is truly on their side. As nation-states falter, network states become inevitable. I should mention that Pronomus Capital is funding the creation of other network states, many of which are further along than Praxis. Some examples are Prospera in Honduras, Afropolitan, Etana, and small farm cities in Africa, Metropolis in Palau, and I think Young Drunk City is planned for South Asia. On Pronomus's website, they claim decades of research on economic development has shown that the primary determinant of prosperity is the quality of a country's laws and the integrity of its courts, administrators, and other legal institutions. When institutions are outmoded, corrupted, or failing, the result is untold human suffering. Yet upgrading national institutions is notoriously difficult. Our solution? Build the cities of tomorrow. Right now, they are creating cloud communities, virtual nations. Once they have access to land, they will get their citizens to migrate to that city. Have a look at the pledge that you sign when you join Praxis, which you can join right now, by the way. Pronomus isn't actually Peter Thiel's first flirtation with exiting democracy either. In 2009, he funded the Seasteading Institute.
I want to say some things on why I think seasteading is not just possible or desirable, but why it is actually necessary.
The Seasteading Institute envisioned building these floating cities in the ocean outside of government's jurisdiction where billionaires could live and create as they saw fit. This idea kind of ran out of steam because nobody wants to live at sea, especially not billionaires, which means they need land. But how do we get from a nation state to a network state?
And this is actually related to a fundamental concept in political science, the concept of voice versus exit. If a company or a country is in decline, you can try voice or you can try exit. Voice is basically changing the system from within, whereas exit is leaving to create a new system, a new startup, or to join a competitor sometimes.
There's another way that Balaji also talks about how this could possibly happen. He calls it tech Zionism.
Right. You know, what I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism, a movement supported by a global network to take back territory in the city, floor by floor, street by street, block by block, policeman by policeman. You have a foothold of private property, and you have a group membership of Grey Tribe membership and private property. You also issue T-shirts. The tribal lens is like a virtual reality filter. Every single thing can be tagged as gray or blue in the city. I mean, like literally. So gray is the future, red is the past, blue is the present. So blue stands against both the past and the future. They're against both the self-driving cars, and they don't want to go back to the 50s. They prefer OnlyFans, Me Too, BLM, Ukraine. The hard part is to take control of the streets. How can you fence off a street and make clear that it's under gray control? Take total control of your neighborhood, push out all blues, Tell them they're as unwelcome as just as blues ethnically cleanse me out of San Francisco. Like, push out all blues who has lost some territory in the cloud. They still control the land. Once Gray starts taking back control of the land, that they're really going to howl. As they start losing, they're going to whistle for backup from California and eventually DC. Okay, they're going to try to get executive orders or things like that, which means you're going to need to have sympathizers at the level of California and DC who will side with you enough to block those actions, number one, and or number two, you actually get to the level of a sanctuary city and you say, I dare you.
Keep in mind, actions like this are already being attempted.
That's a good excerpt, I think, to give people a sense of what this vision is. And I watched that yesterday. Very chilling. People should check out the full video because it's around a half hour long and she goes into more detail. But can we pull up this other article from Gil Duran? This also goes into it a little bit. How all of these guys are obsessed with Curtis Yarvin, and you could hear, we'll get into some of the buzzwords that they talk about. The other day, Crystal Ball sent this to me, and I just thought, I think people should check it out. I think Crystal, Kyle, and friends are having this author on their show. But Yarvin previously had something where he dubbed it back in 2012. This is the second paragraph. Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel's House philosopher, called for something he dubbed rage. Retire all government employees. The idea, take over the United States government and gut the federal bureaucracy, then replace civil servants with political loyalists who would answer to a CEO-type leader, Yarvin likened to a dictator. And as this author points out, Elon Musk's Doge is just a rebranded version of rage. So that essayist really went into, did a great job of, I would say, laying out the insanity of their vision. I mean, all that talk about tech Zionism, we've been ethnically cleansed from blue cities. You can see how Yarvin's vision of being post-democracy, having a monarch, essentially, somebody who can just solve all these problems, and democracy is way too messy. We can just exit, or we can create our own reality here. How identical that has been to, I would say, Elon Musk's actions over the past few weeks, which is trying to get access to the treasury illegally so that he can take it apart for his own ends and build his own utopian, almost tech feudalist network state future. That is what he's trying to do. Implement Curtis Yarvin's vision of anti-democracy and using this kind of utopian justification for a ransacking of our government and of our institutions for a select few. And that involves mass surveillance. That involves a cutting into people's individual rights and suppression of dissent. And I think we're seeing all of that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would only add, I think, a lot of this is just the ultimate endpoint or end goal of neoliberals too, or at least the modern neoliberal era, that this government should be run like a company. And when you sort of index in the way Silicon Valley works and the trendy companies of the 2010s, tech unicorn startups, that those companies were run like little mini dictatorships. Look at Adam Newman at WeWork. They were run in such a way as, the CEO was treated like some kind of golden god because he had run up the valuation to $1 billion, usually with a false bill of sales that was entirely related to their own charisma, a la Elon Musk, only to watch it basically crumble to dust, but to be able to leave on a golden parachute. And despite all of the companies that didn't work out that way, our society, at least for a while, still held up that kind of tech billionaire CEO as the good billionaire. They were the justification for our capitalist system because they provided all the googads and the gadgets and the apps that power your phone. But I think, and this is what we've heard them say not just the influx of Chinese tech supremacy into the world, but also just the overwhelming sentiment that like all billionaires are bad, not just some billionaires, but including tech billionaires. They know they just have developed the same kind of victim complex, or they've had their victim complex ignited, the same complex that like it unites all conservatives. And this is just like a conservative, a conservative ideological position that once democracy fails to once a democracy fails to reify their view of the way the world should be, they just want to get rid of it. Like democracy should only be to like vote people who agree with me into office. And once it no longer does that, then they should just appoint Peter Thiel to be CEO.
Right.
Yeah, I played that Balaji Srinivasan thing about the grays and the blues and stuff when I talked with Olivier Jutel on Left Reckoning. The venture capitalists planned their exit. And when they talk about exit, that they're talking about it as the financial parasites that they are, which means we're going to exit this investment with all of this profit because we weren't actually here to create a good business. We were here for the money. And, that's what they're there for. But I also want to say about Curtis Yarvin. Corey Pine in the October 9th had a piece in the Baffler, the Moldbug Variations, about Peter Thiel's relationship with Curtis Yarvin. And the truth is that they're actually not that much different, Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel should not be understood as a genius venture capitalist. He is a culture warrior, ready to bring that book up, Bradley, who struck it lucky in the markets and now gets a reputation because he got monopoly profits through PayPal of being some sort of lord of creation or innovation. But this is what he was doing with David O. Sachs, that name might be familiar, in the 90s. The diversity myth, multiculturalism, political intolerance on campus. Yarvin also is a person who got investment from Thiel. This is where this money comes from for them to play with. It's them looking to all this money for these sort of political purposes. These are politics guys first, culture warriors first, and venture capitalists sort of like geniuses is just like basically an accident of history because they were able to put down money like Pierre Omidyar, like Elon Musk, a lot of people, because it turns out it's not actually that genius. And maybe the people who could first move were at an advantage when the internet was coming out that, we're gonna have to move money through it. So they all get to put all this money towards their favorite pet projects, including their pet Curtis Yarvin, who is like their in-house, I guess, ideas guy.
Right.
Also,
they can outsource their kind of like intellectual heft onto him and basically say, oh, look at this thinker. He speaks like...
We're just business guys.
Yeah.
But there's this other guy who we just think has good ideas. No, you're the same freak.
And what disturbs me about Yarvin in particular is also the fact that he's been interviewed and he's talked about how we are ripe right now in our political environment that is filled with irony. He says it's in that video essay too, we've never been in a more ironic moment in history. And it makes the simple solutions that I'm proposing a lot more palatable is what he essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. And what he's admitting there is that meaning has been entirely destroyed and our information economy is entirely captured by capitalism and being manipulated by guys like Elon Musk, who purchased the top journalistic communications platform in the world, arguably, in Twitter, which is where that basically that was what that was for. Deprioritize outlets like the New York Times, who I have a ton of issues with. But this was an attack on real am I frozen on information, and I'll fix that in a second. But Brandon, go ahead. I know you want to jump in.
I was going to say Matt's point is, well taken. I think a lot of what they're rebelling against too, despite just having like conservative and neo-fascist tendencies, is that no one thinks they're geniuses anymore, really. Like the culture has shifted in such a way that people don't think billionaires, even tech billionaires, are geniuses. There have been too many scams. There have been too many failures. There's been too many Elizabeth Holmeses and FBSs and like Adam Newmans. There have been too many documentaries. Deep Seeks. There's been too many things that have disabused people of that notion that every tech billionaire you see is actually like, Steve Wozniak or Steve Jobs or any of the Steves, right? Or Bill Gates even, right? So, not to mention a lot of them, Bill Gates has connections with Epstein and stuff like that. There's just been a mass disillusionment as it comes not just to wealth, but also the wealth derived from the tech industry, which used to just be something people fetishized a lot more. But I will say, despite all of that, and also the tech Zionism, that was not what I would have called it, obviously, I absolutely support them building a country somewhere where people like Peter Thiel and JD Vance and, all of the tech sycophants live. It would.
The problem with that, though,
they don't displace anybody. I don't think they don't displace anybody.
But the problem with that is those examples of overseas, like connected cities or whatever they were called. That's just like where they can do it now. Like their real goal is like the country they want to build is right here. Like this is what they want. Yeah, and they want to just take it over. And
because they can't actually build a utopia without this. They can only, like the parasites they are, strap onto actual innovation.
And
I just want to point out too that like this is like, I know Brandon said that like the mask is off for a lot of these people in terms of like what they actually contribute and how people, the average person feels about them, which I'm not so sure it's that positive, that going in that positive direction quite yet. But in the tech world, this is pervasive, that they are so important and so good. Like pull up this this tweet on the screen if you can. I just posted it in the chat from one John Shedletsky. And I want you to read the tweet before I tell you who John Shedletsky is.
Sure.
So just bring it up. Like this is a worldview where they think they are above you, me, and everyone. So here's John Shedletsky. This was in response to one of the Doge boys, his friends, like defending him for, he's a smart guy. I put my full trust in him rifling through your personal data that's held by the federal government.
Let me guess, founder and bio.
Wait for it. John Shedletsky says, Silicon Valley built the modern world. Why shouldn't we run it? Now, can you click on his profile so you can see what John Shedletsky did to build the modern world?
I'm excited. Workplace management app.
Go down. Even better than that. Keep going. Go down. Go down. Go down.
There it is. No.
Which one?
Zoom in.
Bio
Zoom
or
in
the...
right there. That first one right there in the bio.
Oh, Roblox.
First employee at Roblox. That's
Child
the
labor.
modern world he built. The first employee at Roblox is this guy's claim to fame. I looked him up. That's the entirety of that's what he's known for. That's his career. Building Roblox, the video game that's known for being an attraction for pedophiles to go to because it is the easiest way for them to have access to kids. There are numerous reports from various organizations about how Roblox is a pedophile and grooming haven. And Roblox is built in such a way where they can't stop it. That's the modern world that these guys have so proudly built, and that's what they want to take over with. That contribution to society.
Right. And I mean, that is not a libertarian vision anyway, right? They're always concerned about age of consent.
It goes what I was saying, though. It's like Silicon Valley didn't build the modern world. It didn't even build the internet. If anything, it made the internet worse. It created like an enclosed internet, like an internet where like everyone is siloed into various different social media platforms where like there used to be an internet, like, I mean, people under 20 probably don't remember it. The internet used to be a fun place where you could go to websites and like play games, like little flash games, like newgrounds.com, although, that had its own problems too. Now the internet is a series of like social media platforms that are running like psychological experiments on you to give you depression so you shop more. And like then that's like it. The Silicon Valley model for the internet and for the world is just like the Silicon Valley model for the world is just an expansion of that belief that there should just be little techno fiefdoms where like Microsoft rules and Facebook rules and Twitter rules and Instagram, I guess is the same thing as Facebook or whatever, has like their own little like area that they are like able to lord over like they are online. But the internet certainly hasn't gotten better by nature of like Silicon Valley's influence on it. It's gotten a lot worse. It's just a lot easier to earn money on it, I suppose, but that's not necessarily for the best.
Right.
I mean, look what the Silicon Valley model has done to like society in general, even beyond just like our like experience online. Look at what Uber has done to people who were, had jobs with a union and things like that. And look what Airbnb has done. With commodifying even further, like turning any sort of property into a hotel space without any of the protections you get from a hotel. The same with Uber. You lose all those workers have zero protection, zero rights.
That's their innovation
economy now. That's the Silicon Valley world, because they didn't create taxis, they didn't create rentals, they didn't create hotels. They created the model that further commoditized it and took away any sort of consumer protections that were had and any sort of worker protections for the people working in these industries had.
Yep.
And they basically hid it all by saying, we're an app company. We're an app company.
Yeah, I mean that it is. That's a great point. And like, there's other parts of this piece that I encourage people to read. But Yarvin talks about how Trump should amass an army of people that are, quote, ideologically trained, and Trump loyal, quote, ninjas that will be unleashed on the federal bureaucracy. And that, I guess, is really my closing point on this, which is that Project 2025 and this techno feudalist, anarcho-capitalist vision where I guess, cryptocurrency rules the day as well, should not be spoken about as distinct from the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and the Republican apparatus. They are now merged into one. And their agendas have merged into one, which is the dismantling of the administrative state, of worker protections, of the functioning of our government, of programs like Medicaid that give health care to 71 million people who are at a lower income threshold or who have disabilities. They want to make, like, it's like Game of Thrones to them. And everybody else, it's just, the humanity of the people that the government would rule over. That's kind of not their concern.
I never got super deep into Game of Thrones, but I imagine there's a lot of people who get sort of on the outs of the core tiers and have to eat a little shit, or at least pretend like they haven't been completely decimated. And it's interesting to me that, this entire anti-war, Trump hates war sort of contingent, and then Trump is pushing in Bibi Netanyahu's chair as he floats, taking over Gaza for Bibi. Also, on the domestic populism front, there's this sort of Bannonite, we're the pro-worker party now, because frankly, the Democrats have abandoned that to their shame. But Steve Bannon has to contend with the fact that it's not him calling the shots, it is literally foreign tech billionaires, including Elon Musk. And here's Doubt That talking to him, and it's just interesting to get his sort of spin on it.
Underestimate just how weird the long-term ambitions of a lot of people deeply involved in Silicon Valley are, especially around artificial intelligence, and that there is this sort of.
Balazs and the network state. Let's talk about that. They're not weird.
Well,
they're radicals. They're radicals.
That's a yeah, the network state we can save for the next time I have you on. For now, let's just focus on transhumanism. I'm going to be invited.
We got breaking news. Bannon's actually going to be invited back.
We're going to every week, man. So listen. So the transhumanism stuff, though. So to me, it seemed like one of the things that pulled Elon Musk into the conservative coalition was that while he's certainly not a religious conservative, but he is a kind of weirdo humanist, right? He likes the human race. He wants the human race to continue.
Stop.
No. Okay.
Stop.
So you don't see, to me, it seems like Musk is in one group.
Musk is
just as transhumanist as the rest of them.
No, since Edison, maybe our greatest applied engineer.
Okay.
Agreed.
See, positive.
Isn't it dig that he said? Isn't it dig that he said Edison and not Tesla?
That's an interesting point because maybe he's also
because Tesla fans think Edison is and I think it's correct, like
applied engineer,
not necessarily the smarter of the two, and then was a lot of stolen valor. Sorry, Matt. Go on.
Well, I mean, Edison, was more applicable. Tesla's sort of like exciting thing, but it's interesting here. I just find it fascinating that Bannon there's a lot of boisterosity that impresses people about it because he'll call GOP pussies and then he'll go off against Balaji Srinivasan, and then this complete capitulation. I mean, we can let him go. Maybe not a complete capitulation, but he does need to glaze Elon a little bit with this BS about all these guys. Let's just play a little bit further, see how he comes back from that.
As transhumanist as the rest of them?
No, since Edison, maybe our greatest applied engineer.
Okay.
He is a genius in that
Agreed.
level. Agreed. And so he looks at the thing as all kind of mathematical equations and from engineering in a big brain. When he puts on something, he can solve it. He is the most prominent of that crowd that's warned against artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. It's one of the reasons he and the Altman at OpenAI have had so many big fights. Besides
not big fans of each other. Yep.
They hate each other. I mean, and part of that's personal, but part of it is philosophical. And Brother Musk is probably the farthest down the line because he's the most advanced in shipping. So I think Neuralink is one of the most aggressive about Homo sapien 1.0 or Homo sapien 2.0. Elon is at the tip of this, and Elon is actually on an applied engineering basis, not bullshit talk. He is probably the farthest advanced for transhumanism. People have to understand in the life, and I say life, next 10 years of your audience, we're going to be facing a dilemma for yourself and your kids. Do you enhance yourself? Do you enhance yourself either by genetic engineering? Do you
oh my God!
By advanced chip design plugged into you? Do you advance yourself by artificial intelligence?
Please, can you pause it? I'm sorry. Please, I encourage everyone in MAGA to try to advance themselves right now.
Hurry up.
By putting a chip in their brain.
Get the head start.
Can you please be the first? Please, men on the moon. The first man to, you can be the elevated human beings, the next level of our race. Be the astronauts of our time. Put the Neuralink chip in your brain. I encourage it. Bannon can start.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting. He's supposedly the sort of counter to all this stuff, and yet he can't help but sort of take his hat off to it because right now Elon's the daddy.
Yes.
And Bannon needs to flatter that guy, that weird freak who wants to put a techno chip into your head to process your thoughts. He has to defend him.
Or we could make humanity we could choose a different route and maybe give everybody health care and free education and.
Yeah, I don't think we need
venture wages.
All this money that venture capitalists have to play with all this shit. It's very clearly better directed by the state towards all the innovations that all these people have been skating off, like this internet, cell phone stuff. Who made GPS? You idiot.
Yeah.
Who invented all this stuff? It was Uncle Sam and other governments and their higher education sort of grants.
This is what I mean too. A lot of this stuff, tech, Silicon Valley is just used to sell capitalism to you and deregulation to you, generally speaking. Yep. And as you're, deregulating society to facilitate, the techno future, you're, devaluing the public sector in ways that you don't even understand. I can admit that Gattaca may be the future, but to not allow for the fact that some of the biggest advancements in the human lifespan, right, have been articulated or caused by the public sector, whether it be vaccines or whether it be mass public health campaigns like anti-smoking in America.
Narcan.
These are things that the public, the public sector did. And talking about brain chips and Elon's death cars is just a way for people to get sold a bill of sales about our system that distracts them from the fact that we're living shorter lives now, not because we don't have brain chips, not because we don't have not because we don't have cars.
Because we have seed oil in our food or whatever.
Yeah, it's because, we allow corporations to pollute. our environment. We allow the army to pollute our environment. We don't provide universal health care to people. We don't provide a minimum standard of living to people. Those are the things that keep our society behind. Not that we're not giving enough money to billionaires, but this is just the way for them.
Lib, it's the seed oil, Lib.
It's the seed oil.
Evan from
it's
Portland
the Red
said,
15 or whatever it's called that they put in the Kool-Aid.
That stuff is bad for you. the artificial coloring is bad for you.
Yeah,
that stuff is bad for you. But again, that's because America is deregulated. It's to allow companies to poison you for cheaper. And like that's what people instinctually understand that's what's going on in America. They just think that the solution is to have a good billionaire fight the bad billionaires because that's what's been sold to them by like neoliberalism.
Right. We need our Captain America. I mean, it's silly, but it's also just like, I think people are more susceptible to looking for simple solutions in a leader like Trump because our systems work so poorly and like there is no responsiveness.
The Marxist tradition has a long sort of theory about Bonapartism, which is when a leader comes through to cut through the contradictions of two hollowed out, decrepit parties. And it is something kind of interesting to me that the GOP has the House, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, and they're having Elon Musk take point on all this shit.
Mm-hmm. Hogtown. I let my 9-year-old son play Roblox once while I watched him, and a grown man tried talking to him within 45 minutes to get his name and address. No joke.
Wow.
So, to your point, Bender.
I read that study.
That's the world they want to build.
You gotta get your kid on Dark Souls. That's a single player game. You won't have time.
Connected. What was the name of the city? Their network city, connected city. What is it called again?
Praxis.
Pronobos?
Praxis, whatever they were calling it. See, in Praxis,
or maybe Praxis is the vehicle to build it
or whatever. Yeah, but whatever.
It's such nerds.
See, in their world, your child won't even need to get onto an online platform, be accosted by a creepy old man. They can be groomed in real time by anyone right off the streets who'll just go up to them and it'll be fine because that's the connected world that they want to build. That's their world.
No, like the groomer can send their like automated Tesla taxi to your house directly.
Right.
They can just they can like link their brain chip to your child's brain chip, and they can just like, you don't even need to tell me your name and address. No need for ASL. I'll just have my Tesla Cybercab, my Robovin come pick you up.
The unmarked, creepy, white, free candy van will in the future be a self-driving Cybertruck.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew from DC said, absolutely no one in the private sector innovated more than Bell Labs in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they were only able to do that because the government gave them a tightly controlled monopoly and in exchange forced them to make all their patents public.
That's right. And look, of course, there were certain things that Ma Bell got in, and maybe like people will point out like, oh, Ma Bell wasn't letting you do this with your phone line. They were cutting down on innovation. The truth is that we've not seen any sort of significant innovation, especially looking like at the 5G rollout, that sort of thing, by the privatization of all of this stuff and going away from, there's a lot of like, antitrust has a lot of fans these days. Lena Khan, of course, one of the stars of politics. There are certain things that don't need to be broken up for competition. There are certain things that are natural monopolies that should be under the provenance of the national government.
Yep.
We don't even have cool, like, Silicon Valley doesn't even make like cool toys anymore.
I know.
If you go,
R&D is expensive. You need to be a monopoly to have the money to do it.
Like if you go to Japan or South Korea or like parts of Asia, they have like, Tamagotchis and cool gadgets. Everything Silicon Valley tries to make now is like, I hate to say like some kind of like scheme or scam. It's, you have like a handful of people who drop out of MIT and they make like a new app that they're just hoping to have bought out by Microsoft or Tesla or some company so that it can be buried and you'll never see it again. And they get like a cushy job or a cushy like payout package from Tesla or at Tesla. And that's just it. Like, so much of what Silicon Valley produces now are things you will either never see or like, get rich quick schemes or like intended just for like a quick buyout, like Juicero or something like that.
But also that world for them is changing too. Like you're absolutely 100% correct that was the modern day tech success scheme. You create some really stupid thing that goes viral really fast, doesn't even have to make any money. In fact, it could lose a ton of money, but just because you're bringing in an enormous amount of users from your free product, you all of a sudden have $1 billion valuation, and then you just sell it to one of the bigger tech companies and you sit back and relax. But that's all drying up now because so many of these companies have been bought out and then have ended up producing nothing, and it's just in terms of revenue at all down the road. So now you just have these same companies that are making money, and they buy a company and they're like, wait, this isn't producing me any additional revenue, and then they're losing money. And now that's not the quick way to get rich anymore in Silicon Valley, which is probably why they're now turning their eyesight towards taking over things like the government.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.